Evening to everybody. As I said before, we're going to speak in English. In some parts, we might try to help in Hebrew. So if you hear people whispering in the audience, don't be angry. They're just helping to the friends. We're here hosting one of the special events of the monthly film club of TLVFest, the only LGBT film festival in Israel. We're celebrating this year the 6th year of the festival, and every month we host a special screening. We are delighted to host today Shamim and Hanan, and we're going to have a special music afterward, a special show with Loni Casanova. And later on, we hope that some of you will join us for the next screening. As for the next month, I'm going to switch to Hebrew just a bit. We're going to screen The Runaways, 17 נובמבר. הסרט הבא במועדון הסרטים שלנו יהיה בנובמבר. ב-17 בנובמבר נקרין את ה-Runaways, סרט מוזיקלי מטורף, להקה מדליקה. יהיה ערב מדהים שאביטל ברק תנחה ואליוט אמורה להשתתף בו. אז כדאי מראש להתכונן גם לזה. So I think we're going to start now a short discussion. Maybe later on, towards the end, we're going to have some time to take questions from the audience. So good evening. I have to start, as always, from my own point of view, especially after seeing a film like this. I've seen this film, as I told you before, this time was the third time that I actually seen it. I had the pleasure of being one of the programmers of the festival to choose this film to be screened in our previous festival. And during the same time, the film also screened at the B5 London, what we call in Hebrew the Lala Gafafa, the London Lesbian Gay Film Festival. During the same time, Fucking Different Tel Aviv was screened at the festival, and you could see in the audience the tense towards the all too much Muslim content and too much Jewish content, and all issue about boycotting Israel and things like that. But before we're going to get to the all, hard stuff, or maybe the hardcore things, I cannot help with starting with a love, like a love song to London. Do you think that this film, this relationship with those two women would have happened in a different place?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. I think it's possible, but I think London had a very big role in this film, certainly from a personal perspective, because it is where our story happened, and you may have recognized us from those beautiful actresses. I know it was very hard to find them, so of course it meant something personally to me. For me, I was born and raised in London, in and around London, and it's always represented a huge cosmopolitan, very strong cultural mix. So that element of a Muslim Indian girl, I think part of the aspect of living in London is that she is already finding a way forward from the culture and traditions of her parents. And I would think similarly for the Palestinian girl, she's not right in the process, she has an opportunity to live outside it. Even I think the main barrier then is not the place, but it's the concepts in the mind. It's getting over your own headspace. Do you want to say something about London? My wife agrees with me, as any good wife should.
We'll get to this later. Okay. Good. If you already started with the good wife thing, and especially after seeing the movie before, can you tell us a bit more about how your relationship helps you or bring you to bring films into screen, like in terms of you producing the films, you writing and directing, and I especially want to ask you about how it's like to be working together in the same, creative atmosphere. So if the two of you could answer.
Well, Hanan loves working with me. Is there anything else you wanted to say now? Okay, I'll answer first, which is that it's very simple. There's one reason that these films exist, and it's not because I wrote the story or because the story happened. It is because I have a producer who had the passion and the drive to make it happen. As there are many writers out there, maybe some in the audience, who know what it is like to have something that sits in a drawer or never gets read or never gets made. And the difference is finding a producer with the creativity and a passion to really go behind you, especially when you're an unknown writer or an unknown director. And so for me, quite apart from our personal relationship, that is what I had with Hanan. Of course, sleeping with the producer helped. Took me 10 years, so that doesn't say very much from my skill, but got there eventually. And no, it couldn't be any better because you have somebody who is completely dedicated and really passionate about what you do, as passionate as you are, and that's a very rare gift.
For me, it's very much about giving. Well, the reason I produce is not to produce films, but to produce Shamim's work, because I want her to have the creativity and the freedom to explore her stories in as much of her vision as possible. So I think that's important, and I believe in what she's trying to do. I think I drive her crazy half the time with my to-do lists and work, and she often complains, she needs a break. I want to sleep with my wife, not the producer. But in the end, I think it works. We have, I have my things that I do, and she has her. I think the division is quite clear and quite, I'm the boss.
Okay. I think that one of the benefits of trying to write your PhD in London is to be able to hold this that apparently you never seen before. This is the special issue of for gay bi women on the last May issue, and it has a special interview. Apparently not an interview, but writing about the three leading lesbian directors in the UK. And amazingly enough, each one of them could be referred to what we call the multiculturalism in London. We have Lisa Gornick, that we were pleasured enough to host her in Israel, different events, not in the festival, maybe later on. Lisa Gornick is working through and into Jewish issues in her film. We have Pratibha Parmer, that I do hope that I pronounce her name right, that also we had the pleasure to bring into the festival her latest film about 3 years ago. And obviously we have you. So can you think about how different it is to raise your voice in the UK? Because not only, and I think it's very clear, but I do want to stress things out and to talk about them. Not only being a woman filmmaker, but a filmmaker who's working about lesbian issues, and within the whole conflict, the whole interracial relationships, and it's also, always falls into different categories. So I want to think maybe if you could talk about, do you find it different? Do you find it difficult to work in the UK? Or maybe it's like, oh, this is brilliant. So many people to just say, oh, we love London, it's so multicultural and everything. So do you find it easy or more challenging to work with those two different sections? You might have people who would like to see Muslim issues on screen, but like in the current, British soap in EastEnders, you have a gay Muslim character, and then you have the Muslim viewers saying, oh my God, why are you doing this? So maybe just a bit more about.
I think it's interesting. I think I've never thought about my work in those terms, I have to say. I've worked in specifics of cultures and specifics of religions purely because they came naturally to me, or I felt that they were a good example of certain themes that I wanted to talk about. But the themes I was always interested in were things like, what does it really take to be true to yourself in any culture or in any community? The way that we are conditioned to think about religion, about culture, about family, about everything, just from the way we grow up. And that's the influence of our parents, of our communities, of the wider influences we have around us. Because once we have those, it's incredibly difficult to break out of them. We are kind of conditioned one way, and I think what's incredible about us as human beings is we have almost no limits in our imagination and our minds. But our limits come in the expectations of the cultures that we're surrounded in. Now, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes there are wonderful things about those cultures, but sometimes there are very difficult things. As a Muslim, as a Palestinian, Jordanian, Christian or not, it was incredibly difficult to come out and to live a life that was true to ourselves. So there are two ways to look at everything. But for me, the general themes of my work are about trying to attain that freedom. What does it take to push somebody? Who do they need to meet? What do they need to think about in order to break out of the expectation that is around them? London is perhaps as good a place as any for that, but I think it is really relevant anywhere in the world. Really. So.
I wanted, in the beginning to say, and we're gonna have a 30-minute talk without saying the word boycott, but I guess we just can't. So if you could just, in a few words, state your own point of view, and this time, Hanan, you're not getting out of it. We are very, very proud and delighted to host you here, and it means a lot to us, especially if you could talk more about the conference that actually brings you here and help us to, enjoy your visit. So just about it.
We're organizing Liat, my Israeli partner, and myself, an event called TEDx Holy Land in Jerusalem in 2 days, whereby we're bringing Israeli Arab, and Palestinian women to talk. I don't know if you know about TED, but in the TED format and form, where we're moving away from politics and religion, but by the nature of bringing people together is sort of has a backdrop of politics and religion, but it's more about celebrating the achievements of women, ordinary women who live extraordinary lives or trying to live extraordinary lives and make a difference by empowering, sharing, and motivating women in general and people in general. But we started with women as our focus for TEDx Holy Land. I came here to Tel Aviv in April. I spoke at TEDx Tel Aviv, so it was petrifying speaking in front of almost 400 Israelis as a Palestinian. But I stayed with Liat and her family. It was very welcoming, very warm, and really wonderful. And I came again in July to organize with our lovely team. And all of the TEDx Holy Land team are Israeli, so I'm the only Palestinian. So it's been a very wonderful learning curve at many levels. In terms of boycotting, yes, we've had issues with boycotting. With the films showing here in Tel Aviv when they did, and now with TEDx Holy Land, we've had sort of letters from BDS and so on. But at the end of the day,
tell us more about it.
yeah, I mean, BDS is about culturally boycotting. Well, there are many different boycotting issues of Israel, but they say anytime you have Israelis and Palestinians talking, it's normalization, and because you have occupied, you can't have normalization, and therefore you cannot have, the two sides sitting in meetings, so therefore it's illegal. So from our perspective is if you don't have dialogue, how are you going to move forward? So yes, nobody's debating the occupation being not right, violence not right, and so on, but without communication dialogue, we cannot move forward as human beings. So that's their views, and that's not our views.
I want to go back to the film just in order to have some thoughts about your own creative work. You don't identify yourself just as a filmmaker. You started with writing. When I say writing, I mean writing novels. Can you tell us more about, is it a certain language that you're using, or like, you know, in terms of what your next project is? Is it going to be a new book that you're writing or a new film? Do they always have to come together? If you can just, you know, tell the audience more about writing the novel first and then making the film. And something that we all, you know, we all always very curious about, which language do you like more, you know, writing novels or writing to films?
I like them both. I think I'm very lucky to enjoy them both. I like them both at different times. I think there's an element of writing short stories and novels was the first thing, and screenplays, in fact, that was the first thing that I attempted. And there's a solitariness about writing. There's a sense of being the master of your own universe and destiny that appealed to the megalomaniac in me. Because everybody does exactly as you want them to do, although they take on a life of their own. Directing was something that I always envisioned doing. I didn't expect to do it as quickly as I did with I Can't Think Straight. I got an opportunity, and I learned then in a very difficult situation, very difficult circumstances with I Can't Think Straight, that directing was, quite a lot of it was managing people. So it's the complete opposite of working in your mind, because now you need to share your vision with 60 or 70 or 80 people in order for it to come to life. Otherwise it's not going to happen, because I don't know how to make the costumes, I don't know how to light the set, as well as the people that I am asking to help me. So it's very much a collaborative effort, and I think working with the actors was wonderful for me in order to kind of try and get the characters to life even more than I had envisioned them. So I loved that, but at the end of it, I was ready to go back into my room and write. So maybe it's a little schizophrenic, but I love both processes. So I just finished the screenplay of my second novel, Despite the Falling Snow, set in Russia. And next I'll be starting work on my next novel. So it very much is balancing both as and when. And particular stories seem to lend themselves to particular medium for me.
We've just seen I Can't Think Straight. We're going to watch very soon The World Unseen, but you are working with almost the same crew. We're going to see the same actresses and some other members of the crew, and I want to talk about this, you know, the method of your filmmaking. Does it get any easy with working the same crew, or is it more difficult when you already accomplished something before? And also, why are you doing this?
It definitely gets easier. I think filmmaking is a very tenuous process. So if one day goes badly, you have in effect lost 4 or 5 minutes of your story. So you cannot afford for one day to go badly. So that is why having a great producer like Hanan is really incredible, because the majority of the work on a film happens beforehand. So that when you shoot, we had 25 days shooting here, 30 days for The World Unseen. Everything goes like a military operation, ideally. It never does, but that's the idea. So working with Lisa and Sheetal was a conscious decision. I did cast around again for The World Unseen for the role of Amina. I really loved the process of working with these two actresses. And I completely reversed their roles. You'll see a completely different film and completely different performances from these two. And it's a testament to their ability as actors that neither of them really resemble either character, I would say, in real life. So I kept the same lead cast, and of course my producer. But other than that, the crew was almost completely different, and a much happier process on The World Unseen. because of circumstances outside our control, and I can't think straight. We had a very tough time. Days were cut out of our shooting schedule. We were thrown out of locations. Every day was just a wonderful uncertainty of how we would get through it. But the world on the scene was a little more calm, a little more focused, and definitely a learning curve for me and for the actors, I think. So, yeah, I loved it. Both times.
Wonderful. If we're gonna, thinking about the next film that we're going to see without any spoilers, because there are people in the audience that are just going to see it, you could see the switch that you're doing, that you're actually going through a different time in history to tell a story, not just like taking London nowadays, but actually going to South Africa to a certain period in time. What makes you actually go through this time? Because, obviously, one have in mind thinking of, okay, she never lived actually in South Africa, only her parents and grandparents live in South Africa, so maybe this is her going back there without trying to see what's happening nowadays. But you're actually having an historical story. So.
Well, I think I was very inspired by my grandmother's life in South Africa. I had heard a lot about South Africa growing up in London because my parents emigrated in the early 60s because of apartheid. But they carried with them the food, the language. Afrikaans was their second language before Gujarati, the Indian language. So it was very much saturated in my growing up, and I became fascinated by my grandmother's life because she seemed to have so few choices. She was married at 16 or 17, had 4 children by the time she was 22. No question of working, not working, who she would marry. These choices that I took for granted growing up in London just didn't exist for her, and it made me angry. It really upset me, and I wanted to explore what it is that it takes for somebody like that to feel that they might have a choice in life. And so that was where the character of Amina came into play, based on a true character. And so I guess it was, again, wanting to explore those particular themes of people having personal freedom, people having the ability to question their lives, to question the way they're brought up, to question whether this religious practice is right, whether this husband is right, whether this choice that is made for them is correct, which most people never do, because it's easier. We don't want to upset our families, we don't want to upset our communities. And that drives us, rather than in the short life that we have, what we really want and desire and is important to us and makes us grow, driving us. So that was really the impetus behind it. And a fascinating time. Apartheid was just coming into law. So a very difficult time. If you had any color in your skin, you were stratified according to these ridiculous criteria. So that, combined with the culture of the Indian community, was fascinating for me. And I thought an amazing backdrop, and a very colorful backdrop for the themes that I wanted to explore. So, did I get over dramatic there, Holly?
I wish to move more into the exact filmmaking, the process, in terms of how it looks on screen. I think one cannot help but think about the way that you're actually dealing with very radical issues in terms of the script, but in terms of the cinematic tools that you're using. If we didn't see exactly what the characters are saying, it could have looked like a very mainstream comedy. And in this essence, I want to take it to maybe 2 different questions. One of which is, do you see yourself as part of, queer filmmaking? Or, again, as, the things that we talked before about your own personal perspective? And the other one is, what exactly, do you intend to do it? Or is it just happens that you want to tell your story and, amazingly enough, you want to tell your story, but, you write a comedy in the end. And it could have been, you know, as you say, did I sound maybe very melodramatic now? Or it could have been a drama, the sad story of, you know, two girls fall in love in London. So I want to hear a bit about this, the all very important stories that are not seen on films with this very nice genre of romantic comedy.
Well, the romantic comedy is a conscious choice. I mean, I didn't say I'm gay, and my father said, but I've only been gone 2 hours. Funnily enough, really, yeah. Although it was 3 hours exactly. No, it was, I think, do you want to say something about this, please? I don't really speak at home. I just sit in my room. Where was I? I confused myself. Yes, so we had an extremely traumatic, thank you, 10 or so years coming out. And our parents seemed to, I don't know if they were speaking to each other, but they seemed to take turns in driving us nuts. So as soon as one set would subside, you know, the pain and misery would kind of die down, another one would pop up and they'd have an issue about something else, this child or that child. It was a nightmare. It was a very tense, very stressed period of our lives. And you know, when you get into that downward spiral, it's very hard. Because, you know, you are together, and that's a blessing. But boy, it feels like you're against the world, and it was a very, very difficult time. So when I came to write the novel, I wrote a first draft that was extremely self-righteous and rather angry, and sort of expressed a lot of that, but it wasn't really what I wanted to say at the core. I think it was more sort of venting. So I really went away from it for a while, came back to it, and then made a conscious decision to look at it this way, because, you know, at the end of the day, you have to have a sense of humor about these things if you're going to survive them. And there was a way to look at it. And I also wanted to see if you couldn't put a romantic comedy and add religion and politics into that, because this is everyday life in a Middle Eastern family. I never went to a family gathering where this wasn't the main topic of conversation. It didn't matter whether it was a wedding, whether it was a funeral, whether it was a normal dinner. So I wanted to be true to that as well at the same time. And then I think you also asked about whether I consider myself as part of queer filmmaking. I would be completely honest. I don't know if this is the right thing to say in a gay and lesbian setting, but no, I did not initially. Because I think we don't necessarily have a lot of gay and lesbian friends. We have two right here manning the cameras. Our only lesbian friends. Not true. But you know, I think because, I was thinking about it, I think because we were not out in college, we were not out to places where you would naturally gather to people that think the same way as you. And part of that is what we like. We like to not judge people by sexuality, by race, by anything else, by religion. So I think most of our friends are straight and Jewish, weirdly enough. Sorry, I have to say, when we came into the airport, Hanan was interrogated, and it was a very scary moment for me when she was taken into the room. And one of the issues they said is, your son's name is Ethan, that's a Hebrew name, and you're Palestinian. Why do you call him Ethan? She said, well, don't you like the name? She's like, yes, but why are you calling him Ethan? It's that kind of thing. It's just like, let's get past all of that stuff. So no, I didn't. But having said that, I made this film, I was overwhelmed by the response from people. Facebook, Nicole, I have to say your name on the stage. It was just, there was an outpouring, and I think a need and a desire for movies like this, and it really opened us up to that world a lot more, and we've loved